Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of Speaking Steagles, the premier Pennsylvania pro football podcast. I am Nick Vete, joined as always by Ricardo Martinez Paz, and we have 3 games left in this NFL season. We're down to 3 games, 4 teams, and one of them is still the Philadelphia Eagles. Ricardo, I know you're happy about it. Some would say this is the best weekend of NFL football of the year. I have to say that I feel like we got the 4 best teams that are playing in these conference championship games. I don't know if you feel similar, but I feel like the Eagles and 49ers have been on a crash course. Really, for the past couple weeks, it seemed like they're the 2 best teams in the NFC. And then in the AFC, it always felt like it was going to be the Chiefs against either the Bengals or the Bills. And we've got the Bills and Bengals going. But we're going to focus on the Eagles, and I want to know how you're feeling as we're heading into the second to last weekend of NFL football. How you feeling, man?
This is going to sound weird, but I don't feel as nervous this week as I did last week. I'll give you 2 reasons for that. The first, last week, because obviously we were surrounded by a bunch of New York fans. You know, the story, the chatter may have gotten to my head a little bit. So the second thing, the biggest question mark going into this game was obviously Jalen Hurts' health. And he pretty much silenced all the doubters, including myself. So, it's I feel a lot better about where the Eagles stand right now, and especially health-wise. They could be getting Avonte Maddox back. We'll get into that a bit more, but that would be all 22 of their starters healthy potentially in this game against the Niners.
I actually think what you're saying makes a ton of sense, because it's one of those things now where it was like last week, if the Giants were to, give them a run for the money, or the Giants ended up beating the Eagles, it was like, well, like that's disappointing because, like there was the questions about Jalen Hurts' health and Lane Johnson's health and the fact that this team, kind of limped into the playoffs a little bit. But now the fact that like you're going into battle now with this Eagles roster as currently constructed, that like this is the team. There's no excuses now. So that if you end up losing to the 49ers, there's that piece within like a fan of, there's no question marks about, well, what about this if this would happen? What about if Hurts was healthy? What if this? What if that? What if this? What if that? This is the Eagles. So I think it kind of makes sense what you're saying. And that kind of, there's more of that, what you're going into in this game versus the question marks you had last week facing the Giants.
Yeah, and this is the best team the Eagles are going to face. I think it's the 2 best teams, I think, in the NFL, just straight up. Like in terms of offense, defense, they're both top 5, which is ridiculous. And then, the AFC, I'm looking at, I'm just like outlining the Chiefs and Bengals. They're not as like complete, if that makes sense, of a team in terms of talent and coaching. I don't think compared to the Niners and Eagles. So really, I feel like this could be, the winner of this game could potentially win the whole thing. That's just maybe how I see it.
That's fair. I think it's interesting because you talk about the way you kind of talk about, and we'll get into the AFC and versus the NFC a little later. But
yeah,
it is kind of like the NFC has these really complete rosters, really complete coaching staffs, whereas the AFC, I think you could make the case that it's a battle of arguably the 2 best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, in Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes. I certainly think that we could have the conversation that Jalen Hurts deserves to be in that conversation too. But we'll save that for a little bit later. But I want to talk a little bit first before we dive into this matchup against the 49ers. Let's talk a little bit about what went so well for the Eagles in that game against the Giants, because, I put this in the description for this video. They straight up made the Giants look like a little peewee football team in that game. Just absolutely destroying them, blew them out of the water. It ended up not even being really close. You go into halftime and you're like, all right, the game is essentially over.
Yeah. The biggest thing was the run game. That was, very, very much noticeable in that game. The Giants linebackers are being tested all game long. The front 4 too. But the linebackers, I feel like, were just, they lost their confidence. They lost, like Jalen Smith, Jared Davis, both sort of after the first half. I feel like they just completely lost their instincts. And that's really credit to the Eagles offense for designing all kinds of runs. Jeff Stoutland, of course, I'm always going to shout him out for the kinds of these kinds of performances, specifically for how well this offensive line plays together, even with a not fully 100% Lane Johnson. I mean, they finished the game with 268 yards on 44 attempts. That's 6.6 yards per carry. That's absolutely absurd. I mean, Jalen Hurts didn't have to do very much. He contributed 34 yards on the ground as well, and he was willing to take some of those hits too. That maybe back in Week 18 he wasn't. That was more of a trying to prevent him from taking those hits. But in this game, he lowered his shoulder. He didn't give a damn. He just went for it. He played. I mean, they all played really hard, and they again, yeah, like you said, made him look like Pee Wee football. And then the run game was just that good in this game.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that, part of it too is, I was listening to a New York sports radio talk show, the Michael K show, because we're here in the New York region going to college. So it's easy to get those radio stations and everything. And I heard Don LaGreca and Michael K making the point where, and I don't know if you got a similar feel from this, but when Joe Judge, wow. When Brian Dable went for it on 4th and 8 early in the game, I think it was on their first drive that they went for the 4th and 8.
Yeah.
It almost felt like Dable knew, like, in order to keep up with this Eagles offense, which is just going to tear apart our defense all game, like he had to go for it. He had to put everything on the line early on, because it really made no sense if you had faith in your defense to slow down the Eagles offense that you wouldn't just try to pin the Eagles deep in their own territory at that stage of the game and then, kind of hope that your defense gets a stop and then give the ball back to your offense. The fact that he went for it there on 4th and 8, I don't know. Do you agree that maybe that was a signal that he didn't really have a lot of faith in his defense and knew, it was going to get out of hand if he was trying to really slow down this Eagles offense?
I mean, I do agree with that, but I will say that the Giants, do have some good players on defense, but collectively, I don't think they were all that good. I mean, that was evident on Saturday, and I mean, yeah, I think having to try and keep up with this Eagles offense is. I mean, I feel like if I had been in that situation, I probably would have had the same mindset because they're just so good, and that Jalen Hurts, being back to his old ways, really, even not fully healthy, still running the ball himself. It's just so difficult to keep up with this offense. So hard to stop, and I mean, it does. It does speak to, how the defense isn't quite that good.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's just the thing with the Giants is they're a team that certainly exceeded expectations. We may talk a little bit later about some of these NFL award finalists. Brian Dable's done a great job, kind of coaching up Daniel Jones and really exceeding expectations in his first year with the Giants. But they're certainly a team that's still a few pieces away. Now, I will say now, part of what I said around, I think it was week 17 or 18 when we did that episode, I said I think it was leading into week 18. I said the biggest difference for this Eagles team when it comes to the playoffs is going to be whether they can get that week 18 victory against the Giants, which they did, and get that first round bye. And I felt that getting that was the difference between them making a deep playoff run, which they're now doing to the conference championship game, or being eliminated in the first or second round of the playoffs. So for them to get that bye week, I think you saw the benefits of it last week when so many guys like Jalen Hurts were able to get an extra week of rest. They had so many guys that were dealing with nagging injuries. And I think just the extra week to prepare for the Giants, it really showed up in this game. And now we're seeing the Eagles make this deep run, and they're just one win away from the Super Bowl at this stage.
Yeah, I might argue that this is the healthiest the Eagles have been since maybe the first week of the season. And yeah, that bye week was huge. Lane Johnson, I don't know if he would have suited up a week ago or if they had played it a week before. And I mean, him alone is just such a huge impact, makes such a huge impact on this offensive line. There's so much better with him in it, even when he's not 100%. I mean, he's still, I think he might have been flagged twice, or I think it was something like that. But even a banged up Lane Johnson is better than no Lane Johnson. So in that sense, yeah, the bye week certainly helped. And Avonte Maddox this week has been limited, which is encouraging. He hasn't played for since that Giants game, I think it was, with that toe, or the Dallas game, I should say, with that toe injury. And so that, again, the bye week, I mean, he wasn't going to play regardless, but it's still beneficial for the overall health of this team.
I think Sirianni even said in his press conference that they're optimistic. I don't remember what the exact wording was, but he said that they were. It was something along the lines of optimistic or hopeful that Maddox would have a chance to play this week, which would be a huge boost. And I mean, if we want to kind of transition a little bit and get into this matchup against the 49ers, that would allow CJ Gardner-Johnson to kind of revert back into more of like a safety role, even though he's kind of playing in a hybrid right now. And you would get Maddox back, which is going to be, I think it's going to be key because, I don't know what you kind of have on tap here, and I'll let you take charge, but there's going to be some players that are going to be tough to game plan for. And I think especially one of them being George Kittle in the slot, who's played well of late. And then also Christian McCaffrey as a receiver out of the backfield to just have that Eagles defense, which is almost fully healthy, get Avonte Maddox back, even if he's not fully there or he's playing on a little bit of a snap count, it would be a big boost. So I'm going to let you kind of take charge and tell me what direction you want to go in first as we preview this matchup against the Niners a bit.
Man, there are so many good matchups. Like, I wrote out every single player and like the individual matchups that it's just like it's so even. Like,
it's because we are legitimately getting the best two teams from the NFC playing each other right now.
Yeah,
and I mean,
exactly.
just you're talking about all these matchups, and I just want to bring up the stat real quick to preface this. CBS Sports posted this yesterday, but when it comes to NFC ranks this season, the 49ers defense is first in points per game and first in yards per game. The Eagles offense is first in points per game and first in yards per game. So it's really to me, it feels like we're getting the battle of the best offense against the best defense, while the 49ers offense is also very formidable and the Philadelphia Eagles defense is also very formidable. So it's a great matchup. So you tell me where you want to go first when it comes to kind of breaking down this matchup.
Oh boy. So I feel like I have to start with the offense. This is going to be a different animal for both teams. The Niners haven't, I mean, the only two mobile quarterbacks they faced were Justin Fields back in week 1 and Marcus Mariota back in week 7, I believe. And the Niners lost 28-14. And the run game, I believe it was 140 plus yard between, like, amongst Huntley, Algier, and Mariota. So the Niners, okay, and that was also on the road. I'll say that. So I think the run game, at least the dual threat that Jalen Hurts is going to be a big factor in this. That might, I mean, I hope it plays a big role in limiting, the amount of pressure, or at least in making the defense a bit more, like playing the edges a bit more, not necessarily going straight for Jalen Hurts when he can escape the pocket and sort of break through for runs. So I think that's one. I feel like the Eagles have to implement more QB, like design QB runs, more just. I mean, it's strength for strength. I know, like every single position is like just such a battle, and it's just this one I feel like is the most intriguing. And if the Eagles can get the running game going, then it sets up the play action. I remember seeing a stat, I think it was last week, NFL, like on their previews, that the Niners are middle of the team against play action. So that could be huge. The other part of that is RPOs. I feel like the Eagles implement a lot of that throughout their game plans, getting the ball out quick, making Jalen Hurts read the game, seeing what the defensive look is, whether that's taking the ball himself, handing it off, or just passing it to to Devontae Smith, AJ Brown. I feel like those things will slow a defense, that Niners defense, down, because they're really, really good. And using that RPO, play action, mixing up different kinds of runs is going to be huge in this game. But the other thing I feel like is just the Eagles always find a weakness in each defense and they attack it like just nonstop until the defense adjusts it. So again, I feel like that weakness is the play action, but that'll only really work if they can actually run the ball.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that so much of it is going to be completely contingent on the RPOs, like you mentioned, and also just the option plays between whether it's, Miles Sanders or Kenny Gainwell. Just implementing some run options where they basically get a linebacker or a defensive end in a one-on-one play where he's got to make a decision whether to bite on the running back or bite on Jalen Hurts running the football. If they can get that kind of to the outside, I think that that's going to be so key. And I actually looked at that Falcons game a little bit too as kind of a little bit of a template for what the Eagles could do, because Marcus Mariota in that game rushed for 50 yards and he had a rushing touchdown.
Yeah.
So, again, that was early in the season. I think you said it was still week 7. So, this 49ers defense has certainly come a long way since then. But
yeah,
I think for as good as this 49ers defense is against the run, I mean, heck, they're the best defense against the run in the NFL this season. It's still going to be imperative for the Eagles to find a way to move the ball on the ground first and foremost.
Yeah, that's it's not going to be easy at all. But looking at it, I mean, I think the weak link on this Eagles front might be Mailata, because I feel like Nick Bosa is going to line up against him. If anything, Lane Johnson is going to shut down whoever lines up against him. But it would be fun to see Nick Bosa on Lane Johnson's side. I don't think that's going to happen. It'll probably be Samson Ebukam.
It's crazy. It's crazy how Lane Johnson is just a freak of nature. Like we may be getting the two best offensive tackles in football playing in this game, and Lane Johnson on the right side for the Eagles and Trent Williams on the left side for the 49ers. They may be the best right and left tackle in the NFL right now. Yeah, and I mean, granted, Lane Johnson is playing hurt, but yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head a little bit, that one of the key battles to watch is going to be Nick Bosa against whoever he's lined up against, whether it is Lane Johnson or Jordan Mailata.
And then looking at it from the interior of the line, Jason Kelce, I mean, freak athlete. Landon Dickerson, a mauler. Sarah Malo, he's pretty solid against Javon Kinlaw, Eric Armstead. I mean, that's just, again, another battle right there. That's going to be a handful for both, really, on both sides. That's something where I feel like I feel like Armstead and Kinlaw can be a little aggressive going upfield sometimes. Maybe the Eagles can use that to their advantage by pulling their offensive linemen, running more of those kinds of maybe tosses, outside runs, perhaps, to slow down that front four. And then Nick Bosa, I mean, that whole front four is just formidable. I'm just saying it. I'm going to say every single level of this defense is just ridiculous.
Yeah, no, you're certainly right. And, I think it's going to be one of those things as well where you talk about outside of the front four. I mean, they have some of the best linebackers in the NFL. And
yes.
It starts with Fred Warner, who may be the best inside linebacker in the NFL, period. Yeah. I mean, I saw a clip of him running stride for stride down the middle of the field with CeeDee Lamb last week. I mean, it's just insane. It's just absurd, the range that this guy has. And the fact that he can literally line up with the team's best wide receiver and cover him stride for stride, on top of his instincts and his ability. And obviously a ton of the credit, too, has to go to DeMeco Ryans, the defensive coordinator of the 49ers. Yeah. But just there's no break. I mean, you think you might have the front four figured out. Well, all right, get to the second level here. Now all of a sudden you've got to deal with Fred Warner.
Yeah, and I remember watching that play and watching the replay. I was like, how the hell did this dude keep up? He's just that good. I mean, that's going to be a huge challenge. He's really good, and I will say Dallas Goedert might have something to say about that. I mean, the Niners are middle of the pack in defending tight end and passer rating allowed against tight end. I don't remember the exact number, but I saw it in the NFL preview yesterday, and so that could be another part of the offense that the Eagles try and use to their advantage, using Dallas Goedert a bit more, as they did last week, starting against the Giants, except the Giants defense obviously wasn't. It's nowhere near as good as the Niners, but still, again, a lot of weapons across the board for the Eagles, a lot of ways, in theory and on paper, that the Eagles could attack the Niners. But yeah, that defense is number one for a reason. DeMeco Ryans is a candidate to be a head coach for a reason, because they're that good.
I think I'd be shocked if he wasn't a head coach.
I would be too. Yeah, he deserves a place as a head coach in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like everybody's in love with him, but I'm curious now also if there's maybe one spot that the Eagles could take advantage of, and that maybe the 49ers. I mean, this 49ers defense, I think it'd be hard to argue they're anywhere other than the best defense in the NFL this season. But if there is any weakness, maybe it's a little bit the depth of their corners. Do you see Devontae Smith or AJ Brown potentially having a big game?
I would think probably Devontae Smith over AJ Brown. AJ Brown, I feel like it's just getting all the attention. I mean, they're obviously like defense is trying to take their best player out. Obviously, is AJ Brown, and I mean that's not even a problem because Jalen Hurts loves Devontae Smith. He had the most reception of the team with 96, I believe it was. Where's this match? It's Charvarius Ward, Jimmy Ward, or Diamador Lenore. Man, such long names. I can't even say them. But yeah, those three against AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and potentially Zach Pascal, who actually played more snaps than Quez Watkins last week, and I think rightfully so. That's definitely an advantage for the Eagles. I mean, it's two really good wide receivers against Travarius Ward, who holds his own. He's pretty good. Diamador Lenore, he has 2 interceptions the last 2 games, so he's coming in kind of hot, but I don't expect him to really, keep that up. And Jimmy Ward's, I mean, the veteran, he's solid too, but I think the matchup has to go in favor of the Eagles there.
Yeah, but I do think that so much of it too is the fact that there's going to be more success there if the Eagles can just find a way to run the football. I mean, I think that the difference in this game of this being, a dogfight between the defenses, low scoring, under 20 points, versus the Eagles maybe getting up into the mid-20s and really forcing Brock Purdy and the 49ers offense to beat them, is whether or not the Eagles can get that running game going like we talked about. I think everything circles back to that, and it's a really going to be a battle in the trenches between these two teams. And that's what's going to be the main factor in deciding it, because like you said, that'll open up the play action. So I want to ask you now, give me your X factor give me your X factor for the Eagles offense in this game, but also give me the player that concerns you the most. I asked you this last week about the Giants, and you said Dexter Lawrence. Give me the player that you think is maybe the X factor or the game wrecker on the 49ers defense that you're kind of concerned about, that is the one that comes to mind, and then the X factor on the Eagles offense.
It has to be Nick Bosa. I mean, Jordan Mailata on during the regular season allowed 6 sacks, which, I mean, overall he was still fine. He was still good enough. But Nick Bosa is going to win Defensive Player of the Year. I feel like he should. He has to. He leads the league in sacks, and so he might cause some problems on the left side of the Eagles' offensive line. Now, X factor for the Eagles, man, that is tough. That is tough because I could go with Dallas Goedert. I want to say the running. I don't know. I could really go anywhere with this. I'll say Miles Sanders, just because last week he had a solid showing. I think Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith will be fine. But again, as I've been saying, and we've been saying, really, the run game is going to be huge in this. And Miles Sanders, again, still in his contract year. I mean, what a better time, to have a performance than in this game in the NFC Championship against the Niners, who was such a stingy run D. I mean, that he would be huge in this and would just make this Eagles offense that much harder to stop and open up, running lanes for Jalen Hurts. So I would say Miles Sanders, the X factor.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sanders is going to be the center of attention here, and really how he does, and I guess maybe you could lump the other 2 Eagles running backs in there with him. But I mean, so much of it is going to come down to, whether they're able to run the ball. And I mean, we're starting to beat a dead horse a little bit with it, but
yeah,
it's because it's like, I think you said this exact word. It's strength versus strength when it comes to the Eagles rushing offense and the 49ers run defense. So let's flip it over to the other side of the ball. And let's take a look at when the 49ers offense is on the field and the Eagles are trying to defend Brock Purdy and this 49ers offense, obviously with tons of weapons. George Kittle's been playing well of late. Christian McCaffrey has obviously had a really good season, and the talented wide receivers of Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. Give me a little bit. What's the first thing you're looking for here in this matchup of 49ers offense versus Eagles defense?
It has to be stopping the run, stopping Christian McCaffrey. Yeah, he might not have practiced the last 2 days, So they still are. They still have Elijah Mitchell, even if McCaffrey somehow can't go. And because that's just that. I mean, that's the Eagles' weakness, stopping the run. I mean, last week it wasn't because the Giants were already out of the game; they were forced to throw the ball. But
They couldn't run the ball. Yeah.
yeah, and so against a much more, a much better opponent, stopping the run is going to be that much more important, especially because you want to force the game into Brock Purdy's hands. Yeah, he has playmakers and all, and like, yeah, he's been fine. He's been good. Last week he wasn't even that good. He was just he did enough. He didn't turn the ball over, but he also didn't throw for any touchdowns. So he did just enough. Now imagine playing in Philly. He's not at home this time. When you got the Eagles fans up against him, and he's only played 2 games on the road, once in Seattle, once in Vegas. Vegas, forget about that. Their crowd isn't really that good. Seattle, okay, fine. That crowd gets really loud, but it's playoff football. The Eagles fans, you know they're gonna be rowdy. You know they're gonna be loud. Debo Samuel even said earlier. I don't know if you saw this. It was like, yeah, they're not that loud. Like the Niners, like our home stadium's even louder than that. And like, well, what the hell? No. Like, I don't think he knows what he's getting himself into. He's just riling up the Eagles fans at that point. He's asking for them to get rattled, for Purdy to try and rattle Purdy. So again, yeah, stopping the run is going to be huge. Eagles are probably going to use 5-man fronts a lot, and whether that be, I don't know, Jordan Davis up front, the rookie, leading that as a nose tackle. That's something we'll see, but it's going to be really, really important. But the other thing I'm worried about is just how much it's not even just Christian McCaffrey. They can run it with Debo Samuel too. They can run it with Ayuk. They can run like end arounds, all kinds of trick plays. They're just that fast offensively. But if you're gonna try and slow them down, it's gonna have to be on the ground. Otherwise, it's gonna open up the Niners playbook, and the Eagles will be on their heels for the game, and that might not be pretty.
Well, I think that so much of it too is the fact that this 49ers offense, when they run the football, they run it outside. I mean, it's an outside zone running scheme. So while yes, it has the Eagles' deep rush defense has been better with Jordan Davis back healthy, and obviously the addition of Linval Joseph in the middle there, I think so much of the onus too is going to be on those outside linebackers to be able to kind of set the edge and not let Christian McCaffrey get off to the races around the outside. But you just hit a point that I didn't even really think about. I mean, it's scary to think. Let's say that the Eagles really cook up a great game plan to shut down Christian McCaffrey, slow him down, limit him out of the backfield. I mean, the Eagles can very easily pivot and say, hey, the 49ers can pivot and say, hey, we're going to now run the ball with Debo Samuel, or we're going to get Brandon Ayuk involved in end arounds. I mean, it's going to be tough. That's going to be where the major challenge comes. I don't know, man. That's definitely going to be where the biggest battle is won or loss. It's going to be on. I guess it's both sides of the football. Really, is
running
is going to be in the trenches there. Which team is able to kind of play to their game plan and run the football? Because in an ideal world, the Eagles shut down this run game and force Brock Purdy to beat them. Which, as you said, I mean that's really what the formula you'd want is put the ball in Brock Purdy's hands and see what he can do. See if he can beat you.
Yeah, and I feel like I've been saying this all season that I have more trust in the secondary in stopping Debo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, whoever you want to name it, receiver. Then I'm more confident then than I am in the Eagles stopping the run. So that's where I feel like that's the biggest threat to the Eagles overall, and I think they have the edge. I mean, you just look at how like ridiculously good this defensive line is. It's I mean, I can name off all like the players really. Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Linval Joseph, Ndamukong Suh, Jordan Davis, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave. I mean, they're all just so good. They're the reason they had 70 sacks on the season. And I mean, I'm looking at the interior especially, and maybe even Mike McGlinchey on the right side of the line, who also gave up 6 sacks just like Jordan Mailata. So Hassan Reddick Oh, that's what I didn't mention. I knew I was forgetting Hassan Reddick. Um, yeah, Hassan Reddick could have a big day on that left side or on that right side of the line if the Niners don't give help there. Just the trenches, man. It's just such a battle.
Yeah,
I
and I
love
mean
it.
The Eagles need penetration, whether it comes from interior pressure or it's Hassan Reddick on the outside. I mean, obviously Josh Sweat's gonna have his handful with Trent Williams over at the left tackle position, but
Yeah,
the Eagles got to get pressure in the backfield. You know, whether it's against the run or it is Purdy back there in play action. I mean, they have to force pressure on Purdy. That's absolutely imperative. Because I think that it is going to be a challenge for this Eagles to stop the many different ways that the 49ers can cut you up running the football, or whether it's with the short passing game to Christian McCaffrey. So to me, that's the biggest thing is when the 49ers do drop back or they do play action, the Eagles have to get pressure on Purdy and force yardage in the opposite direction.
yeah.
Through sacks and just through quarterback pressure. So I think that that's absolutely key.
Yeah, I just think this is going to be a low scoring game overall. I want to throw some of these stats out here. Rookie QBs are 0-4 in conference championship games. Sean King, Ben Roethlisberger, Joe Flacco, Mark Sanchez all lost in their first conference championship. So I'd take that with whatever you want. Like, take that with a grain of salt, or look into that all you want. Eagles are in their seventh championship game since 2001, 2-4. Their last one was in 2017, obviously, when the Eagles went on to win the Super Bowl. The Niners are in their third championship game in 4 years, 1-1. Lost to the Rams last year, 20-17. Even though I think they actually swept the Rams in the regular season, so that's interesting. 52% of one seeds have won the Super Bowl. Again, take that with whatever you want. Take the information and decipher however you want. I just found all those stats to be interesting. You can look at it from any angle, but regardless, it's gonna be a really close game, really high intensity. I mean, it's just gonna be such a dogfight.
Yeah, it's absolutely going to be a dogfight, and I think that starts in the trenches. And you brought up the fact that you think that this is going to be a low scoring game. So I know that you've got a prediction in here, and I want to ask you about the line. The line is set at 2.5 in favor of the Eagles right now. So what are your thoughts on what your score prediction is? And that the 2.5 spread at first, I thought, well, if you're picking the Eagles to win, maybe, but dude, I mean this 49ers defense is that good that I think that the Eagles could win and the 49ers still cover that 2.5 point spread.
I'm gonna say this could be a game of a game of field goals, and offense could be moving the ball. They just might not score. But the Eagles are one of the better teams scoring in the red zone. I'm gonna say 23-20 Eagles win. I'm not that confident in that pick, but I feel like the Niners will cover somehow. I just it's gonna be close. There's no way this
Well,
is
you've
over
got
like
the
4
Eagles
points.
covering the spread 23-20.
Well, isn't the line 2.5?
2.5. So
So the
23 to
Niners are
20.
covering. Niners are covering, right?
No, you have it as a 3-point win for the Eagles.
Yeah. Oh wait, yeah. Sorry, I'm.
So 2.5. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. But yeah, my point is, yeah, I think this is gonna be a field goal game.
It's interesting because I'm just looking back now since the bye week for the 49ers. They have 2 games where they've given up more than 20 points. One was that bizarre Jarrett Stidham game against the Raiders.
Yep.
And the other was in the first round of the playoffs against the Seahawks. But I mean, this is arguably the best offense. Not arguably, this is the best offense they're going up against since the bye week as well. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a totally entertaining matchup. One point that I wanted to bring up real quick that I forgot to bring up when we were talking earlier, and obviously so much of it when the Eagles are on the offense is going to be their run game against the 49ers run defense. But when Jalen Hurts does drop back to pass, or if they can get the play action game going, if Jordan Mailata can slow down Nick Bosa, 42% of the 49ers sacks this season came from Nick Bosa. The rest, so he was contributing almost the majority of the 49ers sacks this season. The rest were spread out among the rest of the 49ers players. So I think it's going to be big if they can somehow find a way to contain Nick Bosa. Jalen Hurts may have time back there in the pocket to make something happen with his arms or, improvise with his legs a little bit, even if it's not a designed run, so to speak. So potentially somewhere that the Eagles could, exploit the 49ers defense a little bit more as well.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they took a sort of Micah Parsons approach. They try and in the two Cowboys games, they limited Parsons to only a few hits. I don't think he even got a sack on Jalen Hurts or on Gardner Minshew. So I think the Eagles are definitely going to game plan around him, or at least try and give him a lot of some help, some like chipping with Grant Calcaterra, maybe the tight ends, any of them, to slow down Nick Bosa. But he's still really, really good. He's an elite player in this league.
Yeah, certainly. And I mean, like you said, he's arguably he's one of the Defensive Player of the Year finalists for a reason. So
yeah, he should win it.
He's had a great season. Another thing I wanted to bring up I don't know if you read this article or you saw this quote, but I read an article from Jimmy Kempski earlier, and he actually was quoted as saying, and this is kind of what we're talking about. If the Eagles defense can find a way to put the ball into Brock Purdy's hands, it's certainly going to be beneficial for them. And Jimmy Kempski went as far out as to say, Purdy is a mistake waiting to happen. And I quote that. So, I don't know if it's that drastic, that may be discounting Brock Purdy a little bit, but he certainly helped out a ton when they can get the play action going and limit Christian McCaffrey. So if the Eagles can find a way to do that, I know the 49ers have been averaging 140 yards per game on the ground. If the Eagles can somehow make that, a little bit less, hone that in a little bit and put the ball into Purdy's hands a little bit more, that's probably where the formula for success is.
Yeah, that would be ideal. I mean, I feel like everyone's been talking about, when's he going to come crashing down to earth again? I mean, he started it a little last week, but maybe this week is the week where it's just, maybe it's too much. The moment's too big for him, but it's certainly for Jalen Hurts. I mean,
like you said earlier, it wasn't like he played a stellar game, didn't throw for a touchdown last week. He did have that tipped pass that was almost picked off by Trayvon Diggs late in the game. So, maybe there's mistakes to be had there with Brock Purdy throwing the football. It's going to be interesting to see too. And this will kind of be the last point I ask you about, but how big do you think the turnover battle is going to be in this one? And I mean, we're talking a little bit now about Brock Purdy throwing the football, if he could be susceptible to an interception, but I think the same can also be said about the Eagles in that, this 49ers defense is already going to be playing really well and is going to get stops just, forcing the Eagles to punt. The turnovers could be pivotal if one of these teams can set up their offense with prime field position, or a drive could potentially be the difference in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think these two offenses are they don't turn the ball very often. I think they're top 10 in those categories in number of turnovers. So they have some of the fewest. But the defense is both defenses on the other hand. They're both top 5 in takeaways in turnovers. So something's got to give. I mean, I think I feel like the Eagles don't give it up very much. Jalen Hurts has, again, developed so much as a passer. I don't think he's going to force it unless the Eagles are down big or something like that. But
yeah,
Brock Purdy, maybe it might be different. If they're down by 2 scores, then that might be a slightly different story.
Yeah. And, I mean, triple threat quarterback Jalen Hurts. I remember bringing that quote up to you, but I mean, hey, if he's going to beat the 49ers with his mind as well, part of that will be make good decisions, don't turn the ball over.
Yeah.
So he'll beat him with his legs, beat him with his arm, beat him with his mind. He's going to need to use all three against this 49ers defense this week. So I don't really have much more to add. I know you just gave your prediction 23-20. I'm going to go 21. I'm going to go 21-20. I think this game is going to go right down to the wire. It's going to be really close. And I think it's ultimately just going to come down to which team wins the trenches and doesn't turn the ball over a little bit, like we said. I think that's going to be key. And for as 2.5 is not a big spread, but for as good as this 49ers defense is, I think they're going to keep their team in it all game, and I think it's going to be a 1 or 2 point game. So I'll go 21-20 in this one.
Like that. Yeah, that's right. A good one.
Sounds good, man. You have anything else to add on this? I mean, we could spend maybe 5-10 minutes going over some other stuff here, but anything else that you want to touch on specifically with this game, this preview?
Nah, that's all I got. I feel like I talked about almost every single player on each roster.
We've
But
broken this game down to a grain of salt, essentially.
yeah,
Um,
but yeah, we're good.
well, let's flip the page a little bit to the AFC, and we'll spend 5 minutes talking about just the AFC preview because there is only 2 games this weekend, 3 left in the NFL as a whole. Um, any preference for you? I mean, who would you rather face here? I kind of preferenced the show a little bit, saying you have 2 really complete rosters, 2 really complete coaching staffs, and that's not discounting the Bengals or the Chiefs at all. They have obviously really talented coaches and really talented rosters as well. But in the AFC, the highlight I think is really arguably the 2 best young quarterbacks in the NFL in Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes facing off. So do you have any preference over which team, if the Eagles can make it to the Super Bowl, you would rather face?
I man, this is really tough because it has its ups and downs. I think the Bengals are the more complete team, and I feel like it's destined to happen at Joe Burrow win the Super Bowl at some point. I mean, it might be this year. Um, he just looks the part, man, and the fact that he's beaten the Chiefs 3 times, a healthy Mahomes 3 times, is very telling. I think I would rather pick the Chiefs though because Mahomes is injured. He's hobbling. He's not. He wouldn't be fully healthy by the time they get to the Super Bowl. And I think the defense is just a little bit weaker than the Bengals. The Bengals are playing so well, just altogether. The Chiefs, their defense is their weak spot. I would have to say. So I hate it because Mahomes has been to the Super Bowl. He's been there, done that. So has Joe Burrow, but only once compared to Mahomes is twice. But
Yeah, and I mean
I
Mahomes
think,
has won one as well.
yeah, exactly. So it's tough because one's won it, one's been there and had lost and could win it at some point.
I
Uh,
think I think
yeah,
you're right. I think you definitely take. I mean, if Mahomes is injured, and we'll certainly get a sense of that this week. I mean that's certainly an advantage not having him at full strength because we're seeing Joe Burrow firing on all cylinders right now. And I
yeah,
mean, I thought that the Bills were going to win last week when the Bengals were down 3 of their starting offensive linemen. I mean,
yeah.
that would be an advantage for the Eagles certainly if their vaunted pass defense was going up against a banged up Bengals offensive line. But at this stage, it sounds like Alex Kappa has a chance to play this week. Also, Jonah Williams, the tackle for the Bengals. I think by the Super Bowl, he would potentially be back. So it's not like that Bengals defense wouldn't be as banged up come the Super Bowl as they would if you were playing them this week or even last week when they were really banged up. So I don't know if there's necessarily an advantage there. Either way, the quarterback is going to be you're going up against 2 of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. But I think I'm kind of with you that the Chiefs are maybe the better matchup, and we would really have to dive. We'll dive into it more, obviously, if the Eagles make it to the Super Bowl and we preview that matchup. Knock on wood and everything. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have a prediction? I know you have a prediction for this AFC Championship game, man. Who do you have winning it?
I have the Bengals winning. I
You have the
just trust.
Bengals winning too.
Yeah,
Dude,
I
I think
trust Joe Burrow more at
I
this
think I
point.
have the Bengals winning too. I mean, I'm rooting for the Chiefs because obviously Steelers fan. I
Yeah,
don't want the Bengals to win, but I mean, it
it's
seems to me like Joe Burrow is playing the best football of his career, and I mean the way that they just kind of manhandled the Bills last week was really eye opening in the snow in Buffalo. I mean, I don't know. I think I see them kind of going into Arrowhead and coming out on top. And haven't they beat the Chiefs like 3 of the last 4 times they've played, or all
they're
3
3 and
times
0
Joe
all
Burrow
3
has played the
times.
Chiefs? All
Yes.
3 times. That's incredible. And I mean, it kind of raises the question: is there a reason that it's not going to be 4 now? And it's almost like the
Yeah.
Chiefs are at even more of a disadvantage than normal because Mahomes is banged up.
And here's another weird stat. Joe Burrow and the Bengals are 8-0 when it's under 40 degrees. I don't know how the hell that works, but it's
Well,
supposed to be under 40 this weekend too. So
I mean, I guess it's something of just playing in Ohio. It's cold there all the time, I guess. But
I guess, yeah.
there you go. There you go.
That's an interesting one, but
All
yeah.
right, so hopefully we'll circle back and be able to preview a matchup for the Super Bowl in our next episode. But again, knock on wood, we will wait and see. We've been live here for about 44 minutes. Let's take 5 more minutes and just quickly go through some of these NFL award finalists. I'm sure you have predictions lined up for them. I want to talk a little bit about maybe some of the snubs or surprises, but let's break it down here. We'll start with the MVP. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Justin Jefferson, and Patrick Mahomes are the finalists. Who do you think is the MVP?
Mahomes is gonna win it.
I think there's no way it's not Mahomes.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, it's tough because he's had such a good year, but I truly believe that Jalen Hurts also really, when you see what the Eagles were without him, I mean, like, I think that Jalen Hurts should definitely be second when it comes to this award. Maybe if it wasn't for the fact that he got injured, he would be winning it.
Yeah, I think he would have won it, but I mean, there's still another award. There's Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, I don't know if
All
you want
right,
to go over
we'll get. All right, let's do
that.
that next. Offensive Player of the Year: Mahomes, Hurts, Justin Jefferson, and Tyreek Hill are the 4 finalists. Who do you have winning that?
Jalen Hurts.
See,
I
this
feel
always
like it
makes no
has to
sense
be.
to me. It's like if the
I
guy's the
know.
MVP and he's an offensive player, why isn't he also winning Offensive Player of the Year?
I don't know. I mean, there have been instances where a defensive player's won MVP. Well, that's not very common now, but
Yeah, no, it's
I don't
fine. I mean,
know.
I don't mind the award, but to me, it feels like it should
No,
be the
yeah,
same
I
guy.
get what you mean.
Unless you have a guy like Cooper Kupp last year who absolutely
Yeah,
just set records, was tearing defenses apart. Okay, I get maybe giving it to someone. To me, I would almost prefer this award be non-quarterback offensive player of the year, because it seems like
yeah,
if it's an offensive player that wins the MVP, it's always going to be a quarterback. I mean, I
yeah.
remember a year, maybe it was 2017, when Antonio Brown was in the MVP discussion. It's like,
Yeah.
give the offensive player of the year award to someone that's not a quarterback. But I'm sorry, I disagree with you. If Mahomes is winning the MVP, he should also be offensive player of the year. But that's just me. That's just how my brain works.
Yeah, but that's not how the brains over at the voters, do that. That's not how they do it. It's so weird. It doesn't make sense. Whatever.
Fair enough. Defensive player of the year. I mean, I feel like we've already talked about this and we're in agreement. It's
Yeah.
gonna be Nick Bosa, Chris Jones, and Micah Parsons, the other 2 finalists. But yeah, I think that one's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, that one's easy.
All right, let's get into some controversy here.
Oh boy.
Offensive Rookie of the Year. We've got Brock Purdy, Kenneth Walker, Garrett Wilson, and my man Kenny Pickett was snubbed of being a finalist.
Yeah, he was. Damn, that was tough. I mean, I don't know if I would have picked Pickett either. Even if he had been on there, I don't think I would have gone. I think it has to be Garrett Wilson, but
You think it's
uh,
Garrett Wilson?
yeah,
I
over
was
over
I was
Kenneth
kind of
Walker or Brock Purdy. Yeah, I
I
do
was
think
kind of
so.
leaning Kenneth Walker a little bit, man. I mean,
He didn't play the full season.
maybe it's because I think he's going to be one of the best running backs in the league within the next 2 years.
Yeah,
But
but that's the next 2 years. We're talking about last season, so
I know that's fair. Sorry, I have my laundry alarm going off here. I'll get that
no
in a
worries.
second.
He also just didn't play every single game. I think Garrett Wilson did, and he played with 3 QBs. So
You know what? That's a fair point. That's a very fair point.
I
And
think he's gonna win it. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it was also a Seattle Seahawks team that has been notorious for running the football well, no matter who's there in the backfield. So,
yeah,
fair enough. Defensive Rookie of the Year: Sauce Gardner, Aiden Hutchinson, and Tariq Woolen of the Seattle Seahawks. I think this one. See, the Offensive Rookie of the Year, I feel like there was no clear standout rookie this year that was like, oh, he just ran away with the award. I think
yeah,
you can make cases for a couple different guys. Defensive Rookie of the Year, I don't know how you make any case other than Sauce Gardner.
yeah. I mean, he's an All-Pro, like as a
Yeah,
rookie.
this guy, you could make the case he's a top 5 cornerback in the NFL in his rookie season. Like he's the
Yeah,
Defensive Rookie of the Year.
yeah. He had such a good season. I don't remember like he looked amazing. I don't think he made any mistakes at all. Like he just played so well. I don't. Yeah, you can't really
And just
dispute
locked
it.
guys down 100%.
Yeah, yeah.
Comeback player of the year: Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, who we'll see in this game against the 49ers, and Geno Smith. Who you got in this one?
See, this one's a really tough one.
This one's a tough one.
I want to, for the sake of a story, I feel like Geno Smith will win it, but I don't know because he was really good. He said what was the franchise record? He set some sort of franchise record. I think it might have been passing yards in Seattle, which is crazy. And it's like after replacing Russell Wilson, who had been there for a decade.
I mean, I think I'm also with you. I think it's Geno Smith. I mean, just the fact
Yeah,
that this was a Seahawks team that people were writing off at the start of the season, put him finishing last place in the NFC West.
me.
I mean, people had Drew Lock lined up to start at the start of the season. And
Yeah,
for this guy, and the fact that it's not even like one season. Like Saquon Barkley not long ago, had a fantastic season with the Giants before the injuries. Christian McCaffrey, same thing. Geno Smith has been irrelevant for over 5 years. And to come back this season and lead a Seahawks team that was projected by many experts to finish last in their division to a playoff spot. I mean, that's pretty incredible. So I kind of give it to him too. I do think Miles Sanders, it's tough because it's like who you taking out of these three guys, but I think you could have made the case too. Miles Sanders deserved to be a finalist.
Yeah, actually, I kind of forgot about that. He had a bounce back year, a really good year.
I mean, going from no touchdowns last year, I think 800 yards on the ground, only played in I don't even think I think he played like 12 games last year, to this year, pacing the NFL and rushing touchdowns and just having really a standout year. I think he deserved to be in the conversation there.
Yeah, he was 5th overall in rushing in the league, so
100%.
yeah, there was a case to be made for him, but I think
case
it's
to be made. Yeah, but it's tough though. That's going to be a close one as well. Coach of the year: Brian Daboll, Kyle Shanahan, and Doug Peterson.
I mean, you already know who the big snub is in this one.
You already know what? Oh, who the big snub is? Yeah, I mean, come on.
Nick Sirianni, hello.
Look at the name of the podcast. You know who we're saying is the snub here.
Not like he just broke. He had like a franchise record winning season for the Eagles, 14 wins, 14-3. Like, yeah, that's fine. I guess it doesn't mean anything to those voters, the people who do all this stuff.
I mean, I was surprised. I don't even know if I would have had. If I'm being honest, I don't know if I would have had Doug Peterson in my top 5 Coach of the Year finalists. If I'm being completely honest here. I mean, look, I had this conversation with my housemate yesterday, and it's like Doug Peterson is a very good coach, really in the upper half of NFL coaches that currently are employed. He's in the upper half of them. But, to me, I think that Trevor Lawrence is going to be a star in this league, and I don't know how much of it is really Doug Peterson making the difference versus just having a competent head coach, having a competent play caller for Trevor Lawrence, and this young, talented Jaguars roster. I mean, last year they had Urban Meyer, who really, really didn't deserve, it was literally the epitome of someone that was unfit for the position he held. So, I mean, look, I'm not trying to take anything away from Doug Peterson, but to have him in there as a finalist over Nick Sirianni, I think was a little bit ridiculous, in my opinion.
I mean, he did. The Jaguars were 2-6, I think, or at one point in the season, they looked like they were just just going to be bad again. But then he turned it around. I feel like he deserves to be up there. I'm not going to say over Nick Sirianni, but certainly in that conversation. I don't know.
Who's your coach of the year out of these 3?
Jesus. I can make a case for all of them, and I don't know who I pick.
You can make a case for all of them, but to me, the point I'm trying to get at is I think Brian Daboll and what he did with the Giants team, that was, some people were saying they're going to win 2 games, to get them to exceed expectations with a roster that really lacked talent at the end of the day. I think he certainly deserves to be one of the 2 finalists. And then for Kyle Shanahan, with Mr. Irrelevant as his quarterback, to not lose a game since he took over as starter, I also think he absolutely deserves to be a finalist. And I think Nick Sirianni should have been the 3rd finalist. So to me, I think it's Brian Daboll or Kyle Shanahan, and I really won't be upset either way.
Yeah, I wouldn't be
honestly
either.
At the end of the day, I think I kind of lean with Kyle Shanahan the more I think about it as being coach of the year. But if it's Brian Daboll, I won't argue with that either.
Yeah, I wouldn't be upset. I mean, he's just really good coach from 1 year, from not having a head coaching position at all before this year. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if either of them won it, really.
Yeah, 100%. And then assistant coach of the year, the last one here, Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator, DeMeco Ryans, the 49ers defensive coordinator, and
Shane Steichen, offensive coordinator. I don't think he's winning this, bro. I don't think Shane Steichen's winning. I think it's Ben Johnson.
You think it's going to be Ben Johnson? That's fair. That's fair.
The Lions had no right to be that good offensively. I mean, they just did it. Look who they have on their team.
They had no right whatsoever to be that good offensively.
They shouldn't have been. It was just ridiculous. They were like 4th in total offense, 5th in points, something like that. That's ridiculous. Like, who are the receivers? Freaking Josh Reynolds. You got rid of TJ Hawkinson too. Like, what the
Yeah, I mean, DeAndre Swift was hurt for parts of the year. Jamal Williams was just an animal back there getting into the end zone. But, I mean,
he revived Jared Goff.
100%. And, I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown was hurt for parts of the season, too.
Yeah.
No, I think that's fair. But, I mean, also, people are talking about this 49ers defense being one of the best defenses I mean, I've heard some people say one of the best defenses of all time. I think they got to win a Super Bowl before you put them in that category. But I think D'Amico Ryans could also have something to say there too.
Maybe, yeah, D'Amico Ryans up there, but I think Shane Steichen be third in that voting.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
We're gonna revisit this when the NFL has its award show before the Super Bowl or whatever, and they name all the winners. I think we should come back to this and revisit it.
Yeah, I think we should.
And see if we were surprised by anything. And I mean, I think we pretty much got our picks laid out. You know what I might do? I might put a graphic together and post it on the Instagram with our picks and see if we're right or not. So
yeah,
I might do that if I have some free time. I don't know. I got to write an essay for a history class later, but we'll see.
Damn.
I know, right? All right, bro. I think that just about does it for this episode. You got any final thoughts here?
Fly, Eagles, fly, go Birds. You know the saying. You know how
I'm rooting for the Birds here too. I'll be on a bus ride home from a ski race, and I'll be watching on a phone or using or bumming a hotspot to get the stream going. I'm not missing this one. This could be an all-time defensive matchup, and we could see a real good game here. Really in both of these. Like I started the show with it, and I'll close it out. I think we got the 4 best teams that are playing here at the end of the season. I think that's exactly what fans want. I think that's exactly what the NFL can be happy about. And hopefully we are treated to a great weekend of football, and hopefully we are back next weekend talking about an Eagles win and previewing an Eagles Super Bowl matchup. I'll knock on wood one more time for you, Ricardo. Yeah. Knock on wood. But I'm with you this week. Go Birds. Thank you for listening to this whenever you do, and we will see you next time on Speaking Steagles. Peace out, guys.